credit cards should you have? For some people, having 1 or 2 credit cards is great. And there are some people who really shouldn't hold a credit card at all, at least not yet, until they can build better credit habits. Then there are the people who have 5 or 6 credit cards, and then you know those people who have 20 or 30 credit cards. The reality is there is no magic number about the best number of credit cards to have. The best number of credit cards to have really comes down to you. So let me help you decide how many credit cards you really should have. Let's start with the case for having at least 1 credit card. Having a credit card is one of the best possible ways that you can build credit. If you're going to buy a big purchase down the road where you'll need to take out a loan, say a big car purchase or a mortgage, your credit scores is one of the biggest determining factors by the bank of what sort of interest rate to offer you. Typically, a higher credit score means that they'll offer you a lower interest rate, which is better for you. You're paying less money in interest. Even if you say, hey, I'm never going to buy a house, having a good credit score is important for many other aspects of your life. Often landlords will use your credit score as a means of determining whether or not to rent that house to you. Now, there are many ways that you can build up your credit scores, but I find that credit cards are often the best. So you might have a car payment or you might have outstanding student loans. Those payments are contributing to your credit history, but there's a big reason why credit cards are the best, and that's because you can potentially build up that credit without owing any additional money in interest. So if you're making everyday purchases like your groceries, you might now be paying for those things with cash or a debit card. But if you charge them to a credit card and you pay them off in full every month, you won't owe any additional money to the bank in interest while still building up that positive credit history because you've paid off that grocery bill on time in full every month. It's for this reason that I recommend that most people have at least 1 credit card. So you've got 1 credit card, but the reality is starter credit cards that are designed for people new to credit probably don't offer rewards, or if they do offer rewards, they're kind of mediocre. The reality is when a lot of people think about credit cards, they are thinking about rewards, they want to earn them, and that's great. So now is the time to start applying for that second credit card that actually earns rewards. Typically, I recommend that people get some sort of cashback card. Back in the day, cashback cards used to offer about 1% back on your spending, but now you can do better, especially if you have a good credit score. You can get approved for a credit card that offers something like 1.5 or 2% back on all your spending. If you're spending money on groceries anyway, you might as well get some rewards for that. So I recommend applying for that second credit card so that way you can get cash or points back for that spending. Now, that's sort of general rewards, but then there is this tier of people who say, I want to earn better rewards. Or there are the people who spend a lot of money in certain spending categories. This is where you might dip your toes into that third credit card, and that's a credit card that optimizes rewards really targeted to your specific spending. So I see a lot of rewards credit cards that offer bonus points in certain categories. So they might offer like a ho-hum 1% back on general spending, but then they'll offer something kind of wild, like 4% back on dining. If you're someone who's always eating out, then this can make a lot of sense. Get that third credit card that offers 4% back on dining, and then as for your general spending, all the money that you're spending everywhere else, you can default back to that second credit card you had. That's that cashback card that offers just a good rate on all your general spending. Another type of rewards credit card that people commonly talk about is travel credit cards. These credit cards can offer bonus points, particularly on travel, and often they can offer other benefits beyond bonus points, things like free checked bags, room upgrades, automatic elite status. This can be good, especially if you travel a lot with a specific brand. Maybe you always fly for work on the same United flight. It might make sense to have a United credit card so that way you can earn those extra miles and maybe that free checked bag for all those United flights that you know you're taking on a regular basis. Another type of rewards credit card that you might consider is a retail credit card. These can be good for some people. Tread with caution. Some of these retail credit cards tend to have really, really high interest rates, so they're not for you if you have trouble paying your balance in full every month. They often have limitations. Many store credit cards actually only work at that specific store. So these can be good for the people who say, I always shop at Target. I buy my clothes there. I buy all my homewares there. I buy my groceries there. I spend so much money at Target. It can make sense to have that Target store card. Often store cards will offer an elevated rate on spending at that store anyway. So if you frequently frequently shop at a specific store, it can certainly make sense to apply for that store credit card. Again, just read the terms, make sure that it's something that actually works for you. It's not just about earning rewards. There are a few practical reasons why you might want to hold multiple credit cards. Certain networks are not accepted everywhere. A store might accept Visa and MasterCard, but they might not accept American Express. And then there's like that practical safety reason of what if my wallet gets stolen, or what if I just lose it? I always just leave a credit card in my drawer at home. That way, if somehow I lose all of my other credit cards, I'm not completely out of luck and have no credit cards to use, period. So that's sort of the case for having a handful of credit cards, but I alluded to earlier the class of people who have 20 or 30 credit cards. These people are probably doing it with the intent of maximizing their points and miles. These are the people who are going on the wild trips everywhere. They're staying in the overwater bungalow in Bali. You're like, how is this person doing this? They definitely don't have this much money, but the reality is they probably have a ton of credit card points, and typically you're going to need to have a lot of credit cards in order to do this. NerdWallet has outlined tons of information on its site and on this YouTube channel about how you can really maximize your points and miles, but a lot of these credit cards have amazing benefits, things like free hotel room nights, free checked bags, free automatic elite status. They can make you travel like a VIP celebrity. So we're thinking about these people who have 20 or 30 credit cards, and you're saying to yourself, I heard that having a ton of credit cards is bad for your credit scores. Well, yes and no. Let me explain further. So actually, that can sometimes be a little bit of false information. Sometimes actually having more credit cards can be good for your credit scores, and this is why. Every new credit card that you have has a credit limit, and adding new credit cards adds to your credit limit. This can be a good thing in improving your credit utilization ratio. This basically means the outstanding available credit you have relative to how much credit card debt you have. NerdWallet typically recommends that you never have a credit utilization ratio of greater than 30%. So if your credit limit is $9,000, you should never owe more than $3,000 on your credit card. In fact, lower is better. If you can get that credit limit down to like 1%, then that's always a good thing. So adding more credit cards actually increases your amount of available credit, assuming that your spending remains the same. That can actually have a positive impact on your credit scores. Now, the reason why applying for a ton of credit cards can have a negative impact on your credit scores is that's actually in the application process. A new credit card application typically has a temporary negative impact on your credit scores because this signals to the bank that this person needs money. The bank isn't thinking, oh, this person wants a free checked bag on their airline credit card. They're thinking this person needs money. Why? This could be a kind of red flag. If you're applying for 20 cards at once, that's like not just a red flag, that is a bright red flag. So you don't want to apply for a bunch of credit cards in a short period of time. If you are the person who wants to have 20 or 30 credit cards, you are applying for them slowly over time. So, why would you not want to have a bunch of credit cards? There are a few reasons. One is that annual fee. I'm talking about these travel credit cards. Now, many of them have high annual fees. The best ones with the best perks do. Now, if you're not traveling this year or simply paying that credit card annual fee upfront is something that's not in your budget this month, then you might want to go ahead and close that card so that way you're not paying that annual fee. Then there's just sort of like this practical headache reason of every new credit card you have is another thing to manage. It's a new due date to remember, it's a new account number to keep track of, it's a new stressor to make sure that it's connected to a bank that has sufficient funds when that due date comes around. If you're still getting the snail mail paper statements, you need to make sure that there is actually, that you can handle all of that paper. I always recommend just doing the e-statements, but some people like to read that paper statement. So make sure that having all these credit cards is something that you're actually capable of managing. If you're like, you know what, 10 cards is too much to manage, I would rather my purchases just be contained to 1 or 2 credit cards, that is a perfectly valid reason to not want to hold a whole bunch. Some banks actually clamp down on the number of credit cards you have, putting sort of a limit on the folks who do have more than 20 or 30 credit cards. So one way that banks do this is that they actually put a cap on the amount of available credit that they'll offer you. So a bank might say, hey, we don't really care whether you have 1, 2, 5 credit cards, but the most available credit that we're willing to offer you is $30,000. In that case, they might be willing to work with you that you can apply for more credit cards, but you'll have to somehow shuffle around that credit limit, so they might drop the credit limit on a card that you already have from say $10,000 to $5,000, so that way they can offer you a new card with a $5,000 credit limit. Some banks might just say, no, we're not offering you more credit cards because you've already maxed out the credit limit we're willing to give you. Then other banks sort of cap the amount of cards that you can have in a certain period of time. So there's this thing with Chase that's referred to as the 524 rule. Chase won't really talk about it publicly, but basically the idea is that they won't approve you for more credit cards if you've already been approved or applied for 5 cards within a 24-month period. So that's something to take into consideration, especially if you're really trying to gain these sign-up bonuses and you want these rewards because you're planning a specific trip somewhere. Be thoughtful about the timing of your credit card applications. Another bank, Discover, has said that they won't approve you for new credit cards within 12 billing cycles, basically a year. So they won't let you get approved for more than one card from Discover within that year period. So the bottom line is that there is no right or wrong answer about the best number of credit cards to have. I personally have about a dozen credit cards. I have some friends in my points and miles circle who have that 20 or 30 credit card range, and they have high credit scores. Of course, it is totally okay if you're not ready to have a credit card yet to not apply for a credit card and work on building up those good financial habits so that way when you have one, you can manage responsibly. But as for the correct number of credit cards you have, I hope I settled the debate, and the answer is that there is no magic number. I'm Sally French, a travel and credit cards writer for NerdWallet. I have some big expenses coming up, so to take advantage of a new sign-up bonus, you know those 12 credit cards I mentioned having? I might make that 13. Let's hope it's not unlucky 13. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe.